Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to build your very first AI agent. And in fact, we're going to build two different AI agents in this video, and we're going to learn some concepts along the way. First, I'm going to show you how to create a new project and create a new AI agent, and then we're going to go over all of the pieces of the editor, the AI agent builder, so that you don't get lost as you're building. Then I'm going to introduce you to the concept of workflows and how we can add blocks to workflows to add different kinds of functionality. And I'm going to show you some information about variables. Variables are very important when building workflows, so it's important that you understand how to use them properly within your workflows. Lastly, I'm going to show you how to publish your workflow, finalize everything, and we're going to get to play with the AI that we just made. In the second build, we're going to do the exact same thing, only we're going to learn a couple of new concepts. I'm going to show you how to build your AI agent specifically for the MindStudio Chrome extension, and then I'm going to introduce you to launch variables and show you some key differences between launch variables and regular variables. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get started. And the first thing we're going to do is check out some of the agents that we're going to be building. The first is our blog post generator, and this blog post generator has a very simple form, and we're going to fill it out, and we're going to enter what we'd like to write our blog post about. So I'm going to say black holes, and we'll click next, and then it will begin writing our blog post for us. And you'll see that it has proper formatting, it has a title, it has some headers, each section gives us key takeaways, and this is all very intentional. And I'm going to show you how to create this sort of templated formatting in your prompting. The next AI that we're going to be building is for the Chrome extension, and it is a quick summarizer. So if we open up the Chrome extension here on the right hand side, you'll see we have this TLDR agent, and this agent makes a quick summary of whatever content is on the page. And that content doesn't just include text content, but it also includes video content. So it can actually pull the transcript of a video. So if we click the button, you'll see that it is now pulling the transcript from the video, and it's generating a summary of a YouTube video for us. And we can also use this same agent inside of PDF. So we can also run this TLDR, and it's going to pull all of the text from a PDF, and then it's going to generate a summary of the this book for us, for example. So there's a bunch of different types of content. This is one of the advantages of using the Chrome extension. So let's go ahead and we'll start building. The first thing I'm going to do is go to MindStudio, and I will click and create my account. Once you create your account, you'll be taken to your workspace. And this is where you're going to be able to see all of the different things involving your workspace, all of your AI agents. You can see your workspace settings, access some billing details, get usage. In order to build our very first AI agent, we're going to go into this build tab. And from here, you'll see all of the agents that you've published and all of your drafted agents. It doesn't matter which one of these pages you're on, as long as you click create new agent at the very top right. And this is going to start a new project for us and land us inside of the AI agent builder. Now, from here, there are a couple of different interfaces, but the main interface that you'll want to pay attention to is this center space here. And this lands us inside of the automations canvas. When we're inside of the automations canvas, you can see the very beginnings of our workflow. And our workflow is always going to have a start block and an end block. It also is going to include everything in between, and we can add all kinds of different blocks by clicking on this plus button. And you can see that we can do all sorts of things like generating text, generating images. We can display all of our content. We can generate all kinds of different assets. We can gather information via forms or by querying a data source. We can run JavaScript, all kinds of blocks. In fact, if we open up View All Blocks, you can see that we can generate all kinds of things. We can get data from all kinds of places. We can control how our workflow runs. There are hundreds of different blocks in here. And so I recommend that you take a look at the full list and explore as you start to build things out. Now, in this video, we're going to cover a couple of different blocks. And remember, we are building our blog post generator. And so in order to do that, remember, we need a form and then we need to have some AI processing. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create our form. And to do that, we are going to add a block, and that block is going to be the user input block. Now, this block allows us to create these Google Forms style forms, and we can add new inputs and create new variables by clicking on the plus button here on the right. And this is going to pull up a list of all of our inputs. We don't have any, so we're going to create a new input. And from here, you'll notice that on the left-hand side, this user inputs folder now has an input. This on the left-hand side is called your Explorer, and it shows all the different resources that you're using while building your AI agent. So inside of the user input, we can choose from all kinds of different inputs, including long text. We can have a multiple choice if we want to. There is a rating system. There is a way for people to upload files like PDFs or Excel sheets or things like that. We can also have people upload images if we'd like. For us, we're going to use long text, and then we are going to name our variable. Now, one thing to know about variables is that variables represent values. And in particular, with user inputs, it's going to represent whatever we type into the form field. So I'm going to name my variable topic, and we can change our label. So instead of saying label text, we can say enter the topic we'd like to write about. We can include some placeholder text, though that is not required, and we have the ability to add a featured image and include some test values if we're planning on testing this. But we don't need to do any of that. We can simply go back to our main flow by clicking on this tab at the top or clicking on main flow here on the left. And we are now back in our workflow. And you can see that topic is now inside of our user input. Now, again, variables simply represent values, and we name variables by typing out the name of the variable we are assigning. So in this case, I am assigning the value to a variable topic. And the way that you call variables, I can add this display content block simply to illustrate the point here. The way that we call variables is by using these double curly braces. So you'll notice when I use the double curly braces, I get this list of different variables. Don't worry about all this other stuff. We can just look for the variable we created called topic. And now whatever we type into that user input is going to be used in our workflow and is going to be reflected in the message that we send. So if we preview our AI, we can click on preview here at the top right and open a draft of this AI agent. We can enter the topic we'd like to write about. And I'm just going to write, hello world. And we can click next, and you'll see exact thing that we typed out is now represented in our display content block. So it's not saying topic, it is saying exactly what we typed in. So this concept is going to become very important as you build and write more complex prompts for the AI. We'll take a look at that in just a second. So now that we have our user input, we can go ahead and use AI to generate our blog post for us. Now I'm going to add another block. And in this case, I'm going to add a generate text block. And for this block, I am going to give the AI some instructions. I'm going to say, write a blog post about the following topic. And you'll notice that I am using those double curly braces, and I'm selecting. And so now whatever we write in as our topic, it's going to understand that we're going to write a blog post about this topic here. Now, let's imagine for a second that we have a topic that is a little longer than just black holes. Maybe somebody types in something like, I want to write about black holes and space and how they are related to Albert Einstein and what black holes mean for time travel. Now, imagine that instead of having this topic here, we had write a blog post about topic here. Well, this might not be the best way to format your prompt to the AI, because if we have other additional instructions, write a blog post about the following topic and make sure to make it funny, what this sentence then becomes is something completely different than our original intention. Let's take a look at what happens. I'm going to delete this block really quick, and we'll use our display block to test this out. And we're going to say, write a blog post about topic and make sure to make it funny, right? And if we preview this one more time by going into our preview and refreshing the page, and we can start a new run, we can reload the draft. And I can say something like, black holes and how Albert Einstein is involved, plus what it means to time travel, and also make it professional and format it in the right way. So this could be a really long piece of text, and that's the point I'm trying to make. Now, I have some misspellings. It doesn't matter. Take a look at what happens when we inject this value in the middle of the sentence. You'll see that we have this thing that says, write a blog post about black holes and how Albert Einstein is involved, plus what it means to time travel, and also make it professional and format it in the right way, period, and make sure to make it funny. And this is not really grammatically correct, and it actually, with larger variables, sometimes a variable can be an entire website, it's not going to understand what you mean. And so you want to make sure that you utilize best practices and you separate the variable from the instructions. So here's a better version of this. We're going to use a generate text block. We're going to say, write a blog post about the following topic. And then we can separate the variable by creating these tags. And we'll use these tags by using these angled brackets, the greater than, less than brackets, and we can say topic. We can name this whatever we'd like. It's just kind of to indicate to the AI this is something that is separate from the instructions that we're giving. And then we'll use the variable topic. We'll insert the variable topic here. Then we'll want to make sure that we use what's called closing tags. And these closing tags are the same thing, only you're going to have a slash, and that's going to indicate that this is kind of closing out this specific portion of your prompt. So for best practices, it's a good idea to make sure that you use these opening brackets, these closing brackets, and to place your variable in between. So now we can simply delete our display content block because we don't need it anymore. And we can go ahead and test out our AI agent. So we're going to click on preview. We're going to open this draft and we're going to type something like black holes. And we're going to click next. And what it's going to do is it's going to create a blog post about black holes. But now you'll notice one thing that's a little bit different in this version versus our other version here. This one has specific formatting. This is using something called Markdown formatting. And Markdown formatting allows the output of the AI model to have these headers. You can have lists, and we can also give it a template to use as it's generating its responses. So let's quickly add some Markdown formatting to the AI's response by adding some additional instructions. We can do this after we give it the topic, and we can say, make sure to use Markdown formatting in your response. And then we can give it a template using those same tags. And we can call this something like example output. And I'll go ahead and just copy this and add that little slash to make sure we close it out. And we can begin to give it what's called a template. And the template is just a way to indicate to the AI that this is how we want this formatted. And typically what you'd do is you'd have these brackets, and then you'd give it kind of the outline of the response that you're looking for. So I'm going to type something like title of blog post, and then we'll create another one that's going to say something like a catchy and compelling hook. We can add a couple more lines. Maybe this is just a header. This is some body paragraph. And maybe we want a list of takeaways. And maybe we want it to do this a few times so that we can have it. We'll copy and paste that in. And then lastly, we want a conclusion. And this is just going to set out kind of an outline of what we'd like to see from the AI. So now if we go ahead and preview this AI agent, let's go ahead and open up the draft agent one more time. We're going to say wildcats from the jungle to the mountains. It will start to generate a blog post for us. And you can now see that it is using that Markdown formatting that we asked it to. It's also giving us some highlights, including a list, like we asked it to. And it's creating multiple sections and a conclusion. So this is just a very simple way that you can format the output of an AI's response inside of your prompt. So it's a very useful prompting technique here. So now that we finished building our AI agent, let's go ahead and publish it. Let's give it a name. We can give it a name and configure other settings by clicking into this top folder. So I'm going to call this blog post generator. And we can give it a short description. We can add icons if we'd like. We can even give it a landing page if we want to give it a landing page. I'm just going to keep this as blog post generator. And when we're ready, we can click on publish. Now there are a bunch of other settings here that we'll cover in other videos, but the main thing that you need to do is just give it a name by going into the metadata. And when you're ready, you can click on the publish button. This has now set our AI agent live. So let's go ahead and open the agent and we'll try it out. So here we go. Enter the topic we'd like to write about. Let's write about coffee origins. And there we go. We now have our AI agent generating a blog post about coffee origins. Now, there are a couple of things that we can also do inside of our agent. We have the ability to change the model. If we go into model settings here, and you'll notice that we have the underlying model. It's set to Claude 3.5 Haiku by default. And you'll notice if we click on it, we have access to over 90 different kinds of AI models that you can choose from. There are some considerations that you want to take when choosing an AI model for your agent. In this case, Claude 3.5 Haiku should be fine for most use cases, but I encourage you to test it out. We have models from Amazon, Anthropic, Google, Meta, all of the major providers. Once you choose an AI model, you can adjust the temperature, which is the amount of randomness in the model's response. So if the temperature is adjusted all the way up, you can see it becomes unstable and it might output gibberish. If it's set to 0, it means that given the same input, it will generate nearly the same output, not exactly the same output, but nearly the same output. And what we recommend is that you start right in the middle and adjust as needed. The other is the response size, and this is the maximum amount of words that the AI will generate. It's not going to generate this amount of words every time, but it is the upper limit of how many words it will generate. And you can always make adjustments as you go and continue publishing and setting it live. There's no limit to how many times you can publish, so I recommend you build something, publish it, try it out, make adjustments, publish it again. This is private to you, this blog post generator, whatever you end up building. This is a private link until you decide to share it, which you can access using these 3 dots at the very top right, where you can click on invite users and have access to these various access controls. And just like that, we have our very first AI agent. So now I'm going to do a little bit of a speed run and we're going to build the next one. So let me go ahead. I'll go back to MindStudio.ai, and remember, we're going to build a summary agent and we're going to configure it for the Chrome extension. So I'll go into my workspace. I'll go into build. I'll click on create new agent. From here, I need to make sure that we set it up for the Chrome extension. And to do that, we can click on the start block, and you'll notice on the right-hand side, we have this thing called run mode. There are a bunch of different types of run modes, but the one that we want to use is called browser extension. And when we have it set to browser extension, you'll notice that there is this thing called launch variables at the very top. Now, launch variables are very similar to regular variables. They still represent values, but in this case, the launch variables are values that are being brought into the AI agent before the AI agent runs. And so this launch variable, these variables are already set up with values. And in this case, you get a bunch of different values. You get the URL of the page you're on. You can get the metadata from the page you're on. You can get all of the page content, which is what we're going to be using, full text. If somebody highlights something on a page, you can get the user selection, or you can get the full HTML from the page if you'd like. Now, in this case, we're going to be using page content. And so I'm going to go ahead and copy that to my clipboard, and we're going to add a generate text block. And in our generate text block, we're going to give it some instructions. We're going to say, write a TLDR summary for the following content. And again, we'll make these tags so that we can separate our variable from the instructions. There we go. We have our content. And in this case, we're not going to use context, but rather we're going to use this variable called page content. And then we're going to close out those tags. And just like that, we've set up our second AI agent. See, once it's all explained and you understand it, it's very easy to begin to create all types of different agents. And this pattern of bringing in data from somewhere, contextual data, using one block, this generate text block, and outputting an AI response is a super powerful pattern that you're going to want to get used to, because as we continue building out our AI agents, they're going to get more complex in the ways that we bring in data. They might get a little more complex in the ways that we prompt the AI agent, but this pattern is a pattern that is consistent throughout every agent we will ever build. So let's go ahead and we will name our agent. We're going to call this summarize anything. And we'll go ahead and publish it. And when we open up these sites here, if we click on the MindStudio logo, we'll be taken to the page here, and you can see that our new agent is ready to be run within the Chrome extension. We simply click on run, and it is now pulling content from the page here. You can see it's generating this summary for us, this very quick TLDR summary, and it's doing the same thing if we go back to MindStudio. We run the summarize anything agent. It's now pulling the YouTube transcript, and it is getting all of the information, summarizing it, and creating a TLDR of the YouTube transcript. So just like that, we've created 2 agents. We learned about variables. We learned about all the different kinds of blocks. We learned about choosing the right AI model. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something. In future videos, we're going to be building more complex agents, so make sure that you subscribe and stay tuned to see more. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.